Welcome to the Girls Marketing Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things marketing and the perfect backing track to your workday. Every week, we get up close and personal with marketers revolutionising the industry so you can learn from the best in the game. From the latest marketing trends to building a successful marketing career, no topic is off limits. At Girls in Marketing, we champion progress, inspire change, and encourage women to take the marketing world by storm. Check out our website and membership to learn more and get involved, as we'd love to welcome you to our inner circle. Right, let's dive into another episode together. Welcome back to the Girls in Marketing podcast. Today I'm joined by John Thornton. John is a copywriter and comedian by nature. Creating billboards with bold claims and making things go viral is kind of his thing. He's the hilariously dry genius behind many innocent drinks campaigns, as well as more recently the startup cereal company called Surreal. You may have seen when he handed in his 10-foot tall notice letter to his job. If not, don't worry, I'm sure you've seen one of his iconic campaigns at some point. Creating viral campaigns is kind of John's thing. He even says that while his dad doesn't understand his job, he can make anything go viral. I'm not so sure about that, so I think we'll have to test that out today. This conversation is definitely one of my favourites of the season so far. We chat all things creative marketing, how to make viral marketing campaigns with impact, and life working for a startup, as well as some of the hilariously creative campaigns that John has worked on before. Let's dive in. Hi John, welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
It's so nice to have you. I would absolutely love to start at the beginning of your career journey. Tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you are today.
So I studied scriptwriting for film and TV at uni, which was good fun. Learned a lot about writing, then made it very hard to get a job after uni. So I worked in 6 Argoses and a Gala Bingo. Then I got a job for a small shampoo company who sells shampoo out of a garage. So I wrote words for them. I can spell Schwarzkopf correctly, pretty good. Then I somehow got a job at Innocent Smoothies writing tweets. Was there for like 4 years when I quit, and now I write jokes about cereal.
That was like the quickest guest intro ever. I asked someone to do that the other day and it took them like 10 minutes, which is great, but I appreciate that was like 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's all there is to it, really.
Fair enough. So, right, Gala Bingo then. Tell me a little bit about that experience. How did that set you up for your life as what you are now as a copywriter and self-confessed comedian, or actually
so
are a comedian?
I sort of only got that job as a joke,
Okay.
because me and my mate did a show at the Edinburgh Fringe called Sketch Bingo, which was like part sketch show, part bingo. And then I needed a job after, so I thought like, oh, it'd be funny if I get a job in an actual bingo hall. Turns out getting jobs just as a joke isn't maybe the best like career move. It was not my favourite job.
So tell me a little bit about like Innocent Drinks then, your kind of like time there. So you worked there for around 4 years.
Yeah.
What was your role? Obviously you said writing tweets, but what was kind of the day-to-day like? What was that 4 years? What happened during that time?
Yeah, so the first 3 years I was a social media manager. Then I did a year as a copywriter at the end, which is less interesting, to be honest. But yeah, basically the job is just to be silly, just sound like an innocent smoothie. You sort of, I guess our kind of strategy was just to act as if we were messing around online, do a lot of like reactive stuff, not necessarily about like news, but just if it's like raining, talk about rain. If Bake Off's on, talk about Bake Off, and just try and get like a lot of views every day. Our sort of justification, often we wouldn't talk about smoothies at all, but our sort of theory was everyone knows innocent smoothies, so if they just see us popping up in feed, that's sort of enough for awareness. And then every now and then drop a product campaign and try and make a smoothie go viral.
Yeah. So with that then, was that like the strategy? Was it to just show up in the feed, or was there something else kind of underlying there?
Yeah, I can't remember if we actually ever had a written strategy. And my old boss Anna will be cross about me for saying that. Basically, my strategy was just throw enough shit at the wall and see what sticks. And I said that once in like a big marketing meeting, and my boss got cross with me, and she's like, I know that's a strategy, but you're not meant to tell other people that. But yeah, just take a lot of shots. Some of them will come off, kind of thing. And yeah, like the goal was kind of like get reach, get views, etc. I guess we sort of shifted while I was there from when I started, like product tweets wouldn't get anything, or posts or whatever platform. They wouldn't get very much reach. So we were kind of like, what's the point in doing them? We'd just kind of crap them out. We'd be like, we get way more reach from like silly jokes. And then we had this blue drink go like accidentally really viral. And then we were like, oh, we can make drinks go viral. So we sort of, the quantity of posts didn't really change. It was mostly nonsense still, but the effort behind the scenes then went into like product campaigns and just finding ways to get everyone sharing smoothies when we dropped a new smoothie or things like that.
Tell me a little bit about the blue viral campaign with Innocent Drinks then. There's nothing worse than a bad website, but setting up your own website is tricky, especially with no coding experience. I'm currently building my personal website using Hostinger, and I'm absolutely loving it. Hostinger's AI website builder is a great starting point for those of us with less coding experience. All I had to do was sum up the website I wanted in a few sentences, and AI generated a professional website in seconds. Thanks so much to Hostinger for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. You're just a few clicks away from building the website of your dreams. So go to hostinger.com/girlsinmarketing and use the code girlsinmarketing for 10% off your plan.
So basically we'd got this new blue drink, and there's no naturally blue drinks out there. There's very few like blue foods out there. And so everyone internally is very excited, but we're like, I don't think it's that exciting, to be honest. And like product posts never do well for us. So we as a social team, we were like, we don't care, whatever. And then like someone senior starts emailing us and they're like, when are you going to post about the blue drink? And we're like, oh, crap, we need to post about the blue drink. So it's probably like 5 p.m. at this point. So our designer stayed late to try to get a photo of the blue drink. The light had kind of gone. So the colour wasn't like the best it could look. But we were like, well, it doesn't really matter. No one's going to react to it anyway. Just shat out this tweet with a picture of a blue drink. It had like 4 product messages in it. It was genuinely a really bad tweet. But it just said it like, it's blue, it's got vitamins, it's blue, it's this, it's blue, it's that, blah, 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 blah. It said blue about 5 times. And then like immediately get some tweet back from someone being like, it looks green. So there's this 3-second pause where you're like, a bit embarrassing. Maybe it does look green, all of this stuff. And just sort of think like, how do we react to this? And my first boss, Helena, someone had spotted this typo on the label ages ago, tweeted it to us. And instead of being like, oh, that's a bit embarrassing, we'll get it changed, she like retweeted them and was like, we never make mistakes, how dare you? And like with loads of spelling mistakes in the tweet. And so I was like, okay, that's what Helena would do. She'd be like, just be stubborn and whatever. So yeah, this person being like, oh, it looks green, just retweet them. No, it's blue. Someone else pops up, it's green, retweet. No, it's blue, etc., etc. And that just kind of like snowballed, and it was getting like more and more attention, more important people being like, it's green. Just kept arguing with them for like 4 days straight. It was over the Easter bank holiday. Like I was working all that weekend. And it just like snowballed and got bigger and bigger. But one girl shared it just being like, I'll read the replies. And she got like 30,000 retweets, which is mad. That's like John Lewis Christmas advert. One of the worst John Lewis Christmas adverts, but yeah.
So was it blue or green then?
I'm no longer on contract, so I can truthfully say that yeah, it's definitely blue.
Yeah. Blue?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know if I agree with that, but we'll go.
Well, it says blue on the label.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't want to have an argument. But no, I mean, I absolutely love, like, you know, I'm just laughing because I think you are genuinely hilarious. But so natural, and you are like a comedian. That's kind of what.
No, I'm like an amateur comedian.
Amateur comedian.
Yeah, I say comedian on LinkedIn. Because you've got to show off on LinkedIn, but I wouldn't say anywhere else, to be honest. Yeah.
Do you think that like being quite naturally funny has helped you with like obviously the work with Innocent Drinks, but then equally just in general being a copywriter? Do you feel like because that kind of humour comes naturally, it's easier to be a copywriter?
I guess in like for like the brands I work for, yeah, but for other, like if the occasional time when I have to work on some serious stuff, then you're like, well, I don't know what to rely on now. And I guess like my basic sort of way of telling if my work is good is like how many jokes are in it. And so if I'm having to write something serious and you can't have any jokes in it, then I'm like, how do I assess the quality of this?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's some skills from comedy writing which do apply to any form of copywriting, where it's basically like brevity, clarity. You're talking comedy about almost writing things too short, which I think is like the same in copywriting.
Yeah. And I think what's nice is that you are doing copywriting for the types of brands that you can write for, because I think that's nice as a copywriter, is to be able to do that. So obviously you kind of went from Innocent Drinks to Surreal. So tell me a little bit about that experience. Like, you handed a 10-foot notice letter into Innocent Drinks.
Sort of. Basically, I'd been freelancing with Surreal for a while. And then when they launched, they were like, "Oh, do you want to come full time?" I was like, "Yeah, go on." Because like, they were good guys. I'd had enough time to like feel out, and they were like really up for wacky shenanigans. And then, so I handed in a very normal size notice letter to Innocent. And then you have like a 3-month notice period there, which is good and bad. And then whilst I was freelancing for them still, we were like, it would have been funny to hand in a really big notice letter. We just sort of had that like as an idea. And there's these billboards outside the Innocent office. We were like, what if we got one of those? And because I'd not put anything like on LinkedIn of like, oh, starting a new adventure or anything like that. So I was like, we could still do it. Then we couldn't get the billboards. So we were like, oh, that's that idea gone. By this point, I'd like fully started. And we were like, what if we just get a massive Fomex board? So like 2 months after I'd left, just walked up outside, me and a photographer, 5 minutes there, took a picture, left again, posted it. So yeah, it was sort of like slightly bending the truth, but there we go. Did the job. It got like 10,000 likes. It doubled our traffic. I think it quadrupled our traffic, doubled our sales that day. Burnt a few bridges, but there we go.
Yeah. So was that on your personal channel?
Yeah, we did that one on my personal LinkedIn because it made much more sense coming from my personal LinkedIn. And our LinkedIn had like 1,000 followers, whereas I think I had like 2,000 followers, not to brag or anything. Pretty big deal. But yeah, it just logically made more sense coming from a personal account. And it was sort of like, it was one of those ones where it was technically an advert for Surreal, but we'd like hidden the fact that it was an advert. It wasn't meant, you shouldn't have read it and been like, this is an advert. It was more like, I just slipped in, oh, I'm off to this company called Surreal. And then people like would go and look at them. Yeah.
That's so interesting, because I think when people do that, it's like that underlying message. I love when that's kind of the angle that brands take. And I think that that's kind of what, I mean, even Innocent do, but also like Surreal do a lot of the time is, as you said, you're not necessarily posting like product photos, because you know that it's not just about the product. It's almost kind of about how do we subtly like talk about the brand in a way that makes people say, oh, like that's funny, I'll do this, or something like that, where it gets that attention, because it is really hard to gain momentum on like product photos. And I think that's where people go wrong sometimes, is like, oh, we'll post this thing, because you can't be horrible about your own products. And it's like, how do you actually make products go viral? And that's kind of like your forte.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, just going back to a bit you said at the start, I guess at Innocent, we would do a lot of like appearing to not advertise. So like if I was writing like 100 words about a product or something, normally 80 words you'd waffle on about something else, and then you'd bring it back and just be like, oh, and that's a bit like this new drink we've got, blah, blah. Whereas Surreal, we actually try to be much more like on the nose. I guess a bit like Oatly, where they're great at basically literally just saying the sales message in such like an on the nose direct way, but just with that little bit of humor to make you like enjoy it. I mean, it's like you've managed to tell them the exact thing you want them to do way more clearly than in like I don't know, these like car adverts which want to give you a feeling of luxury or whatever. Like, whereas here you're just like, it's much easier to just say luxury.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work if I don't work for car brands, but you know. And then what was the second bit of that question?
No, I was just talking about how brands kind of add it in like subtly. And I mean, just saying what you was talking about then, you guys with Surreal recently did a kind of Sainsbury's, Stockton Sainsbury's campaign that did really well. Tell me a little bit more about that. Yeah,
so I guess there's some things you get asked to post about, or like you need to post about for like the business, which are big deals internally, but not necessarily interesting to everyone. So like at Innocent, we did like rebranded some labels, which takes lots of work internally. No one in the real world cares that a label's slightly changed. And so, being stocked somewhere also that's not naturally like viral news or like shareable news, but you need, especially with the way the algorithm works now, people are only going to hear if like you get people clicking, liking, etc. And so, to be honest, we were going down a different route for the launch announcement or whatever. And like 2 days before, we were like, don't think this one's quite doing it. So we cut that. And just needed to say, like, basically we just need to say we're in Sainsbury's now, but in like a way that will actually like interest people. And so we used the carousel feature on Instagram and LinkedIn. And just the first 3 slides are just like really big news in big letters, and then like properly large news, just saying it in big letters. Because like just something to hook people in, get them to swipe through a couple of times. And then you can say like, and then we took the mick out of our founder, who's like leads on sales, being like, the salesperson's finally done something, because it's a bit funny to take the piss, basically. And no one really takes the piss out of like their team. Like you do, like everyone internally is always taking the mick out of your colleagues, etc. But you never like show that to the rest of the world. But it's like, it feels very like genuine and human, and like how everyone talks. So yeah, we just took the piss out of him. We were like, he's finally done something, which is harsh because like he works stupidly hard. But both the founders at Surreal really get that like impact is like the main thing, and so that they don't really have any ego. They're very happy to like let us take the mick if they know it's going to work. And yes, it did like stupidly. We got like 9,000 likes, and so now quite a lot of people know we're in Sainsbury's, which is all we really wanted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were even chatting before, and I think with products, it's so hard to kind of do those announcement posts of like, we're now in this certain shop or something, and there's a brand that I follow on TikTok, and I didn't even realize, but they're now they're not now stocked at like Superdrug. It's like a beauty brand, and I genuinely didn't even know. And I was in Superdrug the other day and I seen them, and I've never purchased from that brand before, but because they were in Superdrug and it was easy, I picked it up. And I think that, I possibly would do so even more. Like I would have went out of my way to Superdrug if I knew that they'd been stocked there. Likewise with, for example, Surreal. I'm like, I actually really want to go and get some, because I think as much as e-commerce is booming and amazing, I think there's certain elements where people are like, I'd rather go and like pick it up in real life. So it's nice when things are stocked in, in supermarkets and stuff, but I totally get from a marketer's perspective, that's hard to kind of come up with. So I would really love to dive in and understand a little bit more about like what it takes to go viral. Because I feel like you said to me before, like, I feel like I can make anything go viral. Like,
never said that.
I think you did.
No way, I wouldn't say that.
What does it take to go viral? Like because as marketers, there's so many people who are like, we want to go viral, or like founders or CEOs are always like, how do we go viral? What does it actually take?
So I guess there's a couple of things. It's not that I can make anything go viral. It's that I think anything can be made to go viral, more or less, give or take. Then I think there's also a thing of like, what do we actually mean by viral? Because I think viral in marketing, we basically just use it as shorthand for like reaching more people than normal. I would argue most stuff isn't actually viral. I would say properly viral stuff is like Weetabix beans, Greg's vegan sausage roll, Aldi, Marks and Spencer's, Colin Caterpillar, where like newspapers are talking about it, TV channels are talking about it. That is like super rare. But like getting a couple of million views on something, that's like more realistic. And I guess it's you can look at the elements of all the stuff which has gone viral. So like those 3 I just mentioned, they're all very like unexpected. They're all breaking the rules in the sense of like, they're not how brands normally behave. Like Weetabix beans, brands don't normally create a disgusting combination of foods. Greg's vegan sausage roll, brands don't normally have an argument with Piers Morgan. Aldi, Colin Caterpillar, like brands definitely don't normally carry out their legal arguments on Twitter. So there's that kind of like element of a social media manager taking a risk, which I think 9 times out of 10 in viral content you will find. But I think there's also that need for, basically with how it works now, the algorithm, it's only going to spread if people react to it, whether they like, share, comment, etc. So there has to be like a reason for them to, and just a pretty picture of a product isn't a reason to. It might be a reason to like it if you like that brand, but you sort of also need comments and things like that. And so actually, if you think of how on Facebook, where the reactions, there's not just like anymore, there's like laughing, but there's also angry, there's also crying, which is probably harder to tap into as future marketing. But like, you don't just need like any reaction works for viral. Like, I mean, that's how they all work. Like, that's why there's so much like hate speech and all that. Is the algorithm's like, great, people are arguing, push out some more. So you almost sort of want, it's hard to organically create it, but like a little bit of like soft controversy. So like Weetabix beans or Innocence Blue drink are great because people would be like outraged, be like, oh, how can you put beans on Weetabix? But it's not, you know, they're not actually like outraged. It's not like, you know, some awful thing the government's done. It's like soft outrage.
Yeah. I think it's like that humorous outrage, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, this is awful. Like, why would anyone do this? But in like a funny way.
Yeah.
How do you get sign off with things like that then? Because I speak to so many people in our community all the time who want to try something a bit different, you know, want to do kind of some wacky ideas. I feel like you have definitely done plenty of wacky ideas in the past. How do you go about like that approval, like sign off process? Because it's so difficult, I think, sometimes to get that buy-in from like higher up. So, you know, stakeholders, managers and stuff like that.
I guess ideally you would have, it would be like a culture of sign off and understanding and like them being bought into like long term. Because trying to get sign off for like individual things is a bit harder. But there's like, I think there's still ways to do it. So to be honest, at Innocent, we didn't really have a sign off process. We would trusted is a strong word, but we would do our thing and figure it out afterwards, whether it was the right thing or not. But sometimes I would have to sell ideas in. And basically what I would try and do is I would break the idea down into different elements. So we made a baked bean smoothie before the Weetabix bean thing, I will point out. And that was to advertise a breakfast smoothie we had. And the way I sort of broke that idea down was, it's like Northern Monk had done an Aunt Bessie's Yorkshire pudding flavoured beer, and that had done like really well. So that's like a weird food doing well on social. When I was much younger, there was this Facebook group called Beans and Things Beans Shouldn't Be. It was like this wall clock filled with beans and a crock filled with beans and all of this. And it had like loads of followers. Every post got loads of likes. And so it's kind of like this idea. So a bean smoothie is just those two things combined, a weird food combination and baked beans. Both of those things separately performed really well. So put the two together, they should still perform well. And on that occasion they did. So you're like, yeah, great, proved it. So that's kind of what I try and like find reference points for individual elements or like individual mechanics which have worked. So you can like, because what all senior people really want is to like proof or like data. They love data. So that's the sort of thing you want. I guess there's other ways which would be, you could, if like, especially to shift that culture of what as a brand is allowed to do, I would pitch to like, we're allowed to test this on say one channel. So like Threads because it's new, or Instagram stories because it deletes after 24 hours, where we're going to be sillier on there than anywhere else. See how that performs. And then if it's like performing well, then you've got data to like justify doing it in other places. Or you could pick an occasion. So like the easiest, even like a really dry company, you might be able to get an April Fool's Day joke out the door. And then if that does well, you can be like, okay, what about for Wimbledon? What about for Halloween, Christmas, Valentine's, etc.? And if those days are working well, then you've got like more of a case to be like, what if we do this other days? But to be honest, like the Weetabix beans thing, they could have done that for April Fool's Day. And at Surreal, like we'll have ideas for like April Fool's Day, and then we'll be like, let's just do them on a different day, because on April Fool's Day you end up fighting with everyone else, and it's like obviously a joke. Whereas if you do it like seriously on a different day, it'll actually get more impact. But April Fool's Day is still a good place to start.
Yeah. With that then, so once you've kind of got that sign-off process and everything like that, how do you then track the kind of the awareness, the brand awareness that you get from these sort of campaigns? Because again, it's almost like it's all well and good having these campaigns and all of that sort of thing, but where's that balance and line between almost like being like a funny meme account versus actually a business who's like sells products? I think that's a really fine line. So how do you kind of track like brand awareness measures and stuff like that?
I guess the number one way I track stuff is just that little number next to the thumbs up. And I'm like, oh, that one's got more than that one. So there we go. Yeah. That is genuinely like the depth we would go to at Innocent. It would just be what data the platform gave us and nothing more. Obviously it's Surreal because we're in e-commerce. We get a little bit more data of like, we can see it move the needle a bit more. But I think sometimes there's almost like these intangible bits of like, people remembering posts, people still talking about them later, which you can't really track at the time. A little bit in like how people share them. If they're like writing whole posts about a campaign on LinkedIn, then you're like, okay, this has done something. And it's interesting which ones they like do write about versus which ones they don't, even if like actually the reach is like the number of likes or whatever are pretty much the same. But yeah, I guess I don't get too caught up in like exact like numbers.
Yeah.
Just sort of, did it do good or not?
So with Surreal then, it's kind of like, because it's a startup and it's, it's completely different environment, but it's still using that humor element. Is it how would they measure the success? Like, why are you still allowed to carry on doing it? Like, do they see the value in the kind of reactions and the impressions? Is it that? Because I almost kind of feel like it's a long game in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for us, we can look at other food and drink brands who've started at similar times, and some of them we can be like, well, it's like our average posts are getting more than these people, and some of them would be like, our average posts are getting less, or we've got less followers than these. So like, why is that happening? How we can do that? But you can kind of see that we've, or like there's a way on like LinkedIn to track yourself against like, it says competitors, but we actually more go for like brands with similar tones. And you can see that like we're doing similar numbers to a bigger brand who's been around longer, and so then you can kind of see that, because we're in e-commerce, they can see. We got more traffic on this day when we did this stunt online and things like that. So they can it's quite easy for them to see that. I don't really see it, but they saw it early on. They were like, yeah, we've seen the numbers going up, so just keep doing that. And I guess it's also like, I don't know what else we would do. Like if we were being very sensible and serious, it simply would not be getting the same reactions. It might be like, I'd sometimes have this argument with middle management at Innocent where they'd be like, oh, we've got 300,000 followers on Twitter, can't you just tweet about the product benefits for once? It's like, yeah, but no one's going to see it because the algorithm won't share it because it's boring. Like, so literally no one will read it. And so I would do it sometimes just to prove it to them. I'd be like, yeah, look, this one just had your messages in it. It was seen like 5,000 times. This one had baked beans in it and it was seen 2 million times. And they'd normally be like, prefer the one with the messages in. But, cool.
No, I love the messaging behind that, because so many times, there are people in more senior positions that kind of almost think that, oh, well, we should do this, like, let's do this sort of thing. And as marketers, as you said, just kind of almost like do what you're told and kind of post something or do a certain thing, and then when it doesn't do as well, almost kind of go back and in a nice way, obviously, say, I did this post, I did it to how you see fit, and actually this is how it did, versus, as you said, something that, is maybe a bit more innovative or whatever. And whether it's humorous or not, I think that is in itself obvious that marketer knows what they're doing. So often we're like underestimated as marketers, and I think it's nice when, I mean, this sounds awful, but it's nice when someone suggests something and it doesn't do as well as maybe you thought in a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think what I used to like to do is if if someone's coming to you like, they're like, you have to post about this thing. Normally I'd get pretty grumpy and huffy. And I do my best work from a place of like bitterness and spite. And so then it'd be like, all right, I'm gonna technically do what you've asked me to do, but I'm gonna do it in such a piss take way that like you know I didn't want to do it, but also it will actually perform better this way. It's like the simplest way of doing that is just tweeting like, we've been told we have to tell you X, Y, Z. And even that sometimes would do better than just tweeting the exact same sentence without we've been told we have to tell you. Yeah. You can't just fall back on that all the time because it'd get boring. But sometimes I'd like rant about whatever thing we were meant to be talking about, and it would do way better. And like people would like it, and so then everyone's happy. Or like we got told to post because Innocent had got sharps bins in all the toilets. So like people with things like type 1 diabetes who need to inject insulin could safely dispose of their needles. And they were like, oh, it's like the culture team are like, it's so great we've done this, shows we're really thoughtful, think it'd be really great for you to post about it. And you're like, yeah, these bins, they're great, but they're bins, they're not that interesting. But then we just got one of the guys, Connor, who had type 1 diabetes, and so who like the bins were for. We got him and we explained the bins in this post, and we were like, look how happy Connor is. And he just had like a photo shoot of him posing with the bins, grinning, like staring lovingly at the bins, etc. And then it got like 5,000 likes on Facebook, reached like 500,000 people, just because like that 5% of personality added onto the thing we were like meant to be doing, kind of just taking the piss out of the brief we'd been given, like worked super well.
It's almost like taking it literally.
Yeah.
As well. So what would your advice be then to anyone who's looking to create a viral campaign? Like if you had to give them kind of one piece of advice, what would you say?
So I guess it's like, I would just break the thing down into every element possible to find one bit which you could make interesting or which you could make extreme. So going back to that bean smoothie idea, that came from like a breakfast smoothie, but it was sort of, we were calling it a breakfast smoothie internally, but externally they wanted us to talk about fiber because it had oats in it and stuff like that. And fiber's not very interesting unless we could talk about poo, and they wouldn't let us talk about poo. But you're like, breakfast has that's a bit more normal. And then you're like, okay, other breakfast things, toast, eggs, beans. Beans are weird. What if you put beans in a smoothie, etc. So just kind of like from taking one, not trying to cover everything. So actually that was a whole range of drinks. There was like 7 drinks in it. We broke it down into like, we talked about the blue one, and we focused on blue stuff. We talked about the breakfast one, we focused on breakfast stuff. There was another one I can't remember, but we focused about something else. Whereas like originally the pitch was we were meant to talk about all 7 at once, which is way less interesting than picking different elements and like just explode in that one element.
That's interesting. I think taking things so literally and, as you said, kind of pulling it apart and really understanding it and kind of getting into like the audience's mind, if you will, to say what will people actually want to see from this, because you know, as you said, people aren't always going to interact with one product photo to say we've got this new thing, like a new drink or a new line or something like that. So I want to talk a little bit about like your creative process then, because I think obviously being quite naturally the comedian that you are, as I keep like laughing behind every to and fro we have, but what is actually your creative process from obviously now working in a startup? There is, you know, it's kind of a smaller team, so I feel like it's probably a bit more scrappy. How's your creative process from like thinking of an idea all the way to like the execution of it?
The set was pretty similar to Innocent. Like at Innocent we had, there was me, my boss, a designer, so it was like 3 people. So it's actually, we were pretty siloed, so it's not felt too different going to a startup. But yeah, so I guess and in both Innocent and here, occasionally I'll get like a proper brief, like we're launching here or we're launching this new thing, can we make some noise about it? But often it's more like just sort of feeling around what we could do. I normally start from either, breaking it down into elements, like I was saying, and finding like one element to focus on, or sometimes we'll think of just something that would be attention grabbing, and then you cram the element onto it. So the most obvious one, because I've done this now about 4 times at Innocent and at Surreal, which is just to use Comic Sans or like Microsoft Paint or word art, things like that, just like purposefully shit design. Because that always stands out in people's feeds. People always like, they'll always bite, they'll always nibble, which goes back to what we were saying earlier about you just want a reaction. And then you just sort of try and find a reason to justify using. You sort of need the story to back up why you're using, because anyone could use bad design at any point. But if it doesn't make sense, then it's not going to be like fully work. But so at Innocent, we did it for a rebrand where we'd got some new labels and were meant to make them go viral. And you're like, well, it's a pretty boring label. So instead of doing that, we were like, we're just going to do some really shit labels. And the designer did like 30 of the worst labels you've ever seen, like all sorts of different styles. Some of them were also like really cool. Like he did like Swedish, Scandi, minimalist labels, and all of this stuff. And then we did like 24 rebrands in 24 hours and just kept changing every hour. And people were like, why have you changed it to this? And we'd be like, all right, we'll change it to this. And so I was like focusing on the fact that we'd rebranded rather than focusing on the actual rebrand. And, just getting people to nibble at how bad the designs were. And then at Surreal, we did one where it was like summer and we claimed our designer had gone on holiday. And so the rest of the team had to do the design to justify why we were just doing these like Comic Sans billboards. And then we did one just in this January where we said it was like first week back and we can't be bothered. So like these designs were the best we can do and they looked like shocking. And they did really well. And that basically came from a place of, in December, I already couldn't be bothered and I knew I couldn't be bothered in January.
Yeah. I think with that though, like the Comic Sans and that kind of humour, it's almost kind of like the sort of humour that most people can relate to. Yeah. So it's almost like they see it and that's why it goes viral, because it's almost like you share it because it's like, oh, this is really funny, even if you don't really have an affiliation with the brand. So it's almost like understanding how do we tap into like nostalgia, because I feel like Comic Sans historically has been taken the piss out of, hasn't it really? Yeah. Like nobody really thinks it's a good type font. So everyone kind of like sees it and says, oh, and there are some brands that use it in a non-humorous way. It's almost kind of like making it humorous is something that people like because they're like, that's actually quite funny. So I love kind of like all of this and talking about like creativity and creative humor and stuff like that. But I actually wanted to talk a little bit more about like brand and brand tone, because I think that obviously working with both Innocent and Surreal, both brands have very like key kind of identifiable brand tones. But when you went to Surreal, that's something that obviously you've kind of like created yourself almost. So what was the inspiration for that? What was it that made you want to go with that kind of like, and even more like on the nose type of humor? How did you create that brand identity? I think so many marketers struggle with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't really call it like created or new. It's, if I'm honest, it's just Innocent Smoothies, but grumpier. Can they sue me for saying that? I don't think so. It's probably fine. It's just like a slightly, I guess in the Innocent Smoothies tone of voice was really successful in like 2000s, 2010s. But then like Brewdog are like similar but ruder. Oatly are similar but like more sarcastic, more on the nose. So because of those, like you have to be a bit more extreme, which is why we're a little bit more extreme in like smoothies. I think, but also I think it's quite easy for these brands to like, they want to sound happy and positive all the time because they think otherwise people won't like them, and they don't want to give off negative connotations. What if like people then like associate them with negativity? But like people aren't positive all the time. Like if you look at characters in TV shows, they're not positive all the time. And if you want to feel like genuine and real, you have to allow yourself to be like a bit sarcastic sometimes, a bit snappy or whatever. Which is why we'll do things like take the mick out of staff members, because that feels much more real than just saying everything's wonderful all the time. Like they changed the brand positioning at the smoothie company at one point, and so then we weren't allowed to be like negative about anything. And it made it so hard to talk about stuff, like including like anything to do with like environment or things like that. If you're like not allowed to say that carbon is bad, then it's hard to be like, so it's great that we've gone carbon neutral. You have to be able to say bad stuff's bad.
Yeah. Thinking about that then, competitors. Surreal has kind of had a bit of a dig at competitors in the past. I feel like that's quite bold to do that. What's your kind of stance on it? Because I think Surreal did a campaign with like kind of digging at like Kellogg's in a way, maybe like, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Early doors we did like they weren't really like digs, they were like cheeky winks towards them. Like I wrote some much like harsher versions, which we didn't use because that didn't give quite the brand vibe we wanted. And I guess I would say that like Kellogg's aren't really a competitor, and like it's such an underdog thing that it's not really comparative. Versus like when Burger King are constantly going on about McDonald's, some of the campaigns are really good, but some of the times it makes them look smaller than McDonald's, I would say, because McDonald's sort of just don't react at all. You get the vibe McDonald's are bigger. So there's like upsides and downsides to it. But obviously because we're super small, the easiest way to like position yourself is versus something else. And so that's what we did. We was basically just like, watch out, Tony. We've not got any sugar, but better than that. I can't remember the lines.
Yeah.
But it's just like a shorthand way of saying new cereal company. Because also I think like we weren't the first company to do that like sort of startup challenger versus competitor thing. Like you'll see it for like taxi companies, you'll see it for dating apps and all those sort of things where you just sort of, if you just say like, it's just an easy way of saying we're a startup cereal company or startup taxi company or whatever. And then people, without even you needing to say we're healthier, got more protein, less sugar, people are smart enough to be like, oh, they're probably better than Kellogg's because they're new and shiny. Like they can sort of put two and two together.
Yeah, and I think because of that kind of similarity, but such a difference as well, it's almost like that again hitting that like nostalgia point with people. So I love that. So to finish up today's episode, I'm going to ask you to make something go viral for me.
Well, don't think I can make anything.
So to finish up today's episode, you are going to attempt to tell me, well, you can just tell us how to make our Girls in Marketing water bottle go viral. What would you say? How would you advise?
So yeah, I guess whenever, because it's like, you'll always see social media managers complaining about people saying like, how can you make this go viral? My way to respond to that question is like, it's like, here's how we can make it go viral. Do you still want it? Like, do you still want us to do that? So
are you asking me that question now? Well,
yeah. So the easiest way to get attention for that bottle would be to fill it with piss.
I don't know if I wanted that to be your answer.
And then the campaign is like, well, it's like it's a water bottle, or you can fill it with other liquids if you want, and like, or like like water bottle, piss bottle, whatever you like, really, and like all sorts of things like that. Like it would get clicks and it'd get attention, and it would get at least soft outrage, maybe medium to hard outrage.
Oh well, I am quite outraged, but I really appreciate that because I mean I'll be honest.
Well, I mean, there's other bodily fluids you could put in there.
Yeah, I don't think I will do that, but I really appreciate that is, and I feel like I now believe that you could make anything go viral because I know that would do really well, but I'm not going to do it. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's been so nice to have you.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Girls in Marketing podcast. It was a good one, wasn't it? If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review and rating of the podcast and share it with someone who may find it useful. Your support really does go a long way. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode, but in the meantime, keep up to date with Girls in Marketing over on social media and our website. We'll pop some helpful links in the description.